We're now recording.
All right, thank you. Welcome and good afternoon to the public hearing on procedures for discipline, attorney competency, and admissions. This is the first of two hearings that are mandated pursuant to Business and Professions Code section 6095. Excuse me. Subsection A. The second hearing will be held tomorrow at 1 p.m. And as a reminder, this hearing is being recorded. I would ask at this time I don't think we have to take roll call, but I would ask for staff to go around and introduce themselves, starting with Ms. Wilson.
Leah Wilson, Executive Director.
Eileen Dastian, General Counsel.
I can go next. Louisa Arpetian, Board Secretary.
Devin McFarland, Program Analyst in the Office of Admissions.
All right, welcome and thank you for your monitoring of this meeting today. Trustee Stevens, could you introduce yourself and just give a little bit of a background regarding you, and then your appointing authority and your thoughts on today?
Well, thank you. Yeah, Mattias Stevens. I'm a 30-plus year lawyer in San Diego, California, appointed by the Senate doing civil and employment law.
Welcome. I think this is your first discipline call for public comment that you've taken, so glad you could join. And then a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Jose Cisneros, our Vice Chair. Could you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Jose Cisneros. I am a non-attorney member of the Board of Trustees. I am the Treasurer of the City and County of San Francisco, appointed by the Governor of the State of California, and happy we're able to do this to hear from the public. Thank you.
We're joined also by Trustee Buenaventura, who looks like he's knee-deep in trial prep.
I am. Good morning, everybody. Ray Buenaventura. I'm the Chief Public Defender of Lake County. I've been appointed by the Supreme Court, and thank you. And I'm interested in hearing the discussion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for our very robust attendance by trustees. My name is Brandon Stallings. I'm the Chair of Board of Trustees, and my day job is Deputy District Attorney. So welcome to all. We'll go through the normal admonitions, and then I'll make a call for public comment. Our sole agenda item is a call for public comment. Staff will attempt to call members of the public in the order that they appear in the attendee pool. For those of you participating via Zoom, you should have a function for virtually raising your hand. It's the hand icon, and it should appear at the bottom center of your screen. If you wish to address the committee, please click on the hand icon now, and State Bar staff will call on you in the order that hands are raised. For those of you participating via phone, you may virtually raise your hand by pressing *9. That's the star key, the number 9. Doing so will alert staff you'd like to make comment, and staff will call on you and open your microphone so that you can address the board. Due to time restrictions, we cannot allow more than 5 minutes for each speaker. Please note that staff will have an on-screen countdown timer visible to all attendees during the duration of your public comment. The timer's 5-minute countdown will begin as soon as you start your comment. The on-screen timer will flash throughout the final 10 seconds. We have had one individual sign up in advance for public comment, and as always, we appreciate members of the public who give us advance notice. And so our first speaker that I'd like to call on is Benjamin Cohn. So Mr. Cohn, you should have your microphone active. Welcome.
Chair Stallings, Benjamin Cohn is actually not in attendance at the moment.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to address this body?
Yes, we have the first speaker, Audit LA. Audit LA, your mic has been enabled and you should be able to address the board.
Good afternoon, board. Thank you for taking this comments and for giving us a generous amount of time to address these things. I want to talk about people, attorneys who hold the public trust in the sense that they are, they work for the public. And I want to reference especially the city attorney's office in Los Angeles. I'm seeing a lot of things that I find concerning. And it's just in general, I think there needs to be a closer scrutiny, okay? Because like one thing is I attend all the city meetings, and I notice a lot of times the city attorneys allow for massive amounts of Brown Act violations that go completely unchecked. Yet they, when the councils or any of the boards are going against the public, you know, and violating their rights, like they're going beyond their scope of what they can do or should be doing, the city attorneys also do not get involved. And I think that's a huge issue. They are leaving the city open to lawsuits. And that's one thing. Another thing is the actual city attorney herself. I will name her office right now there's a lot of protesting with Scientology right now. And there just seems to be a lot of favoritism for Scientology and against the protesters. Like someone trying to get a protest permit was denied because Scientology was able to get somebody from the city attorney's office to squash it. There's also a lot of frivolous cases coming against people, and I'm sure the one person is going to be talking here, and I will let him tell you about the first ever thing that the city attorney has ever done. I don't want to steal his thunder. But it is egregious to me that the city attorney did this for the very first time, and it's blatant prejudice against a community who is just basically trying to stand up for children and human rights. And then also because the Church of Scientology also is having some other egregious city abuses, and the city has they have all these non-ADA compliant planters around and abusing different systems. And the city Bureau of Street Services has told them they have to remove these planters, and also like thorny rose bush vegetation to keep people away off their easements. They were told they have to remove them.
Ma'am,
Yes?
I'm going to interrupt you just real quick. The State Bar Board of Trustees, we oversee all things related to attorney discipline.
Right.
And
Oh,
so
okay.
if
I'm
you
going to
could-
relate it.
If you could keep it within that purview.
This does relate, okay, but I'm just trying to set up the stage for it. Since they were demanded, okay, by the top levels of Bureau of Street Services to remove this stuff, but haven't, the Bureau of Street Services has submitted, okay, the situation to the city attorney. Sorry, I was trying to give you the bigger picture, but we'll get there faster. And as far as I can tell, I've been to the city attorney. They know nothing about it. They're very hostile there. First of all, there's a lot of hostility, and I come very pleasant. I'm not rude. I just want answers, and they don't have any. So they don't even have they're acting like they don't even have a record that the street services submitted help from the city attorney to pursue this matter further. So there's just there has to be a level where I know you guys are getting so many complaints about the city attorney's office and their absolutely blatant favoritism for Scientology and the abuses of peaceful protesters, mind you, and abusing their power. And it has to be looked into. We need, the people need help, because it's not fair that they not only are attorneys, so they know how to manage the law better than the average person, but these people hold very powerful positions, and they are using their positions, for the benefit of Scientology for whatever reason, whether, for whatever reason. But they need to be held to a higher standard of discipline. Anybody in public office, whether it's police officers, lawyers, whatever, if you're in the public trust and you are an employee of the public, you need to be held to the higher standard. One other thing, though, it's a little bit separate, I want to talk about is that attorneys who give up their clients without any reasonable explanation, that should be punishable as well. Every client should get an explanation as to why their attorney may want to disconnect. And it should be a valid reason. There should be, a list of reasons, whatever. And so I'm asking you to please be mindful of that as well. And I thank you for giving us this generous amount of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, identify the next person, please.
Next, we have Benjamin Cohn.
All right, welcome, Mr. Cohn. Your microphone should be activated.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to go a little bit into the bar exam experiment that has been primarily overseen by the CBE, but there's been a few incidents that I've found to be disturbing in that there seems to be an attitude that it is that because the experiment is largely for the state bar's benefit, that the selection criteria can be for any reason that's within your convenience, and what is offered to applicants on that exam doesn't have to be as equal to what they would need to have if it was a real bar exam. I think that if this was for money instead of a grading incentive, that reasoning might make some more sense. Although even then, it's a practice service that's offered to uh, some applicants and really should be made equally available. But where it's directly giving an opportunity, and not just an opportunity, but a performance-based opportunity to get scaled amounts of extra credit on the past or future bar exams, then it really legally needs to be equally accessible on the testing accommodations. And it's also not okay that even if it didn't pass the vote, that some CBE members were suggesting that in-state residents should be the only ones eligible for it, when that gives unequal opportunities for admission to out-of-state residents, even if they were willing to travel. So for both of those reasons, there really needs to be potentially some alternative remedies for these grading incentives. At this point, I have heard from many applicants who were not even giving consideration of their testing accommodations for the bar exam experiment. That is not that it was denied, it was not considered because the staff didn't want to do the timelines from when they decided to do this experiment and give applicants enough notice to the experiment, and they had no opportunity to get their testing accommodations considered to take the experiment. And now there's going to be performance-based incentives on the grading of future bar exams based on not having those accommodations considered. So I really want there to be maybe a makeup bar exam experiments with accommodation requests that weren't considered having been offered, or potentially it should be the ball in your court, not the applicant's court, to seek some permission from the California Supreme Court just to give the grading incentives if an applicant was wrongfully not given access to a bar exam experiment. That I realize that requires their permission, but some of these things where it's in the interest of justice, it should be you requesting it and not the applicant having to hire counsel to petition. The next point I want to make here is that there really should be some thought given into the sustainability of the exam. I realize that you have made a great decision in dropping the NCBE, which was an unsustainable way of administering the exam there with the policies that they had and the costs that they had. But there are a lot of other unsustainable things about how the bar exam is being administered that really you should give some thought as to how much resources of other state bar departments outside the Office of Admissions should be put into protecting the Office of Admissions prerogatives to control their workload by a much smaller amount than the resources that they're expending to fight for that freedom of action. So as we start thinking about how many more years we keep revisiting that, these same disputes, think about the sustainability of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, who is next?
Next, we have Barry Bader. Your microphone has been enabled and you should be able to address the board.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I am here to talk about attorney discipline, which I believe is the jurisdiction of this board. And I have a few attorneys I wish to bring about whose discipline I have concerns with based on previous incidents of their behavior. First of all is attorney William E. Mangle, a prominent lawyer for Scientology who specifically at the North Hill Superior Courthouse about 3.5 weeks ago was caught on camera as well as with a sheriff deputy present in the hallway after leaving a hearing involving a Jane Doe case, specifically a case about a victim of child rape and child bride, assaulted this Jane Doe in the hallway. The sheriff's deputy did nothing, and still Mr. William E. Mangle continues to be allowed to practice law. Now, I don't know about you, but I think if I remember the last time I read it, and I did in fact read it earlier today, part of the disciplinary code of the state bar is such that if a lawyer commits an active crime, especially one at a courthouse, that at the very least calls for an investigation, public hearing into the license and disciplinary action of this lawyer. And I urge your board to seriously take a look at the behavior of Mr. Mangle. There is a crime report, and we know for a fact through patterns of behavior that the sheriff's department is in the pocket of Scientology. But so far, what we've seen is the enforcement aspect of the courts is in fact on the favor of the public critics of Scientology. And I urge you to also please be on that same side, because LAPD and the sheriff's office are in the pockets, for fact, in the pockets of Scientology. I want to move next to another lawyer that their actions have just been absolutely atrocious, and it's actually a case I'm currently facing right now. And that's with none other than City Attorney Heidi Soto. And I want to just explain to this board that I actually have the honor and absolute privilege in the hundreds of years that LA has been around. I am the very first defendant ever truly to have the city attorney present at an arraignment. Never for a misdemeanor vandalism charge, just for an arraignment has the city attorney, and it's only that one count, mind you, one count misdemeanor vandalism, has a city attorney personally showed up to handle that arraignment. And I can tell you why. It's a political case. It involves Scientology feeling that they're entitled to the ownership of the public easement. And it's a case with the people of LA versus Henry Marini that has no prosecutor assigned despite 3+ months. And it's a political case to try to silence yet another critic of Scientology. Not only that, but we have on record a lieutenant of the LAPD Northeast Division admitting to the public that City Attorney Heidi Soto deliberately has not been prosecuting charges on people that have been assaulting protesters of Scientology, and especially cases involving indecent exposure to people, especially one child who has been a critic of Scientology, who has an active case right now and already has a CLETS RO against one child predator who's a known Scientologist. And Heidi Soto refuses to press charges on him, despite countless repeat violations of the CLETS RO order by this child predator named Anthony D'Amato Jr. That's what Heidi Soto has been doing behind the scenes. She's been refusing, and that's not even the only one. There's been another child predator who's a known Scientologist who the LAPD knows about and has escalated the issue to city attorney for prosecution. And she deliberately, thanks to leaks and information and CPRA records, we know specifically that she has intentionally chosen not to prosecute because they are a Scientologist. So you have two child predators, known child predators, that are also Scientologists. City attorneys refusing to deliberately not prosecute because they are Scientologists. You have my political case involving an absolutely bogus case. And you have another gentleman who was a victim of city attorney over bogus charges, who's actually, it's legally kidnapping, okay? Michael Del Mar, he was thrown in jail, okay? And city attorney decided to drop those charges because she knew it was a political case. Remove their bar license. So that enough is enough. We see the corruption. Thank you.
All right, I have staff identify the next person.
Next, we have James Cardoza. James, your microphone has been enabled. You should be able to address the board.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
hear me now? Okay. First off, thank you, Board of Trustees and bar staff for holding this public comment session and meeting. First item I'd like to speak briefly about is with attorney admission. And I think this is probably would require action by the state legislature. I'm almost certain of that. Right now, one of the steps for attorney admission is the moral character determination, which is, from my understanding, pretty unique to to state bars, relative versus other professions where you just do a U.S. Department of Justice criminal background check, which turns around much more quickly and has a very objective set of standards for determining pass or fail, versus the moral character determination, which to me seems to be a bit arbitrary, and also I'm assuming very costly, which I would also assume is probably a critical issue for the bar right now, because I understand that the bar is having and has been having some financial difficulties. So I would just like to go on record stating that I would like, if possible, in any discussions that staff has with anyone from the legislature, to maybe investigate the question of, does it make sense for the state bar to shift to a standard DOJ criminal background check as opposed to the current practice of the moral character determination, in place of that. Second item, an item of disclosure, I am actually a bar applicant. I have finished law school. I sat for the bar exam unsuccessfully once. I did pass my MPRE. I have not filed my moral character application, but I am scheduled for the February 2025 bar exam. Third item, this is not related to the other speakers. This is based out of Fresno County, but it also has somewhat of a similar theme of the need for greater scrutiny of attorneys who are working either as public defenders or as district attorneys or deputy district attorneys. I had an incident that all started with my divorce, where because of false accusations against me, the police and district attorney's office got involved. As I was fighting the case, the district attorney's office here in Fresno County filed multiple additional false charges. One of those charges named the district attorney Lisa Smitkamp out of Fresno County herself as the alleged victim. However, her case, her office was also the prosecutor on that case, which to me seems to me that would be an immediate conflict of interest that would call for either a special prosecutor being hired to come pursue charges if they were merited, or for the case to be transferred out to a neighboring county district attorney or to the state attorney general's office. None of those things happened. Fast forward, the case went on for over 2.5 years. At one point, I think at least maybe 6 months or a year into the case, I don't remember the exact timeline, one of the deputy DAs who was assigned on the case admitted to my then attorney Hill that the charges were false charges. Then suddenly at the next hearing, that deputy DA Wilson was no longer working for the office. So I have no complaints against deputy DA or former deputy DA Wilson, because she obviously was no longer on the case. Once she and my attorney discussed, and she admitted that was bogus charges. But they brought in additional deputy DAs from the Fresno County DA's office to continue pursuing the case. Eventually, the judge dismissed the action. I did file a complaint with the state bar regarding this, but it seemed to me like the complaint just got swept under the rug. I didn't, I filed my complaint, didn't hear anything for several months. Then I followed up with someone from the state bar who monitors the state bar's LinkedIn account, and asked, "Hey, what's going on with this case?" And then a couple days later, I get an email, saying that, or actually, I'm sorry if I'm getting my timeline of events mixed up, but anyways, I filed my initial complaint. It got dismissed.
Sir, you have 10 seconds.
Sorry, the appeal was dismissed. I'm concerned that the complaint was swept under the rug. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next.
Next, we have Mona M.
All right, your microphone should be active. Welcome. Can you hear us? Your microphone's still muted. Can we go to Amy's
There we
iPhone?
go. Can you hear me?
Oh, there we
now?
go. Okay, now we got you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Board of Trustees. I appreciate the time you have given for public comment today. I would like to file a complaint against Robert Mangles. He is with Jeffer Mangles, Butler, and Mitchell. He, on October 10th, was attorney for the Church of Scientology in the case of Jane Doe versus Church of Scientology and David Miscavige. This is an active human trafficking and sexual assault case working its way through the system right now. He pushed one of the witnesses. It was witnessed by several in the area and the LASD. There was a report filed, but no action has been taken. This is an assault event and should be investigated and disciplined. At least, in the least, he should excuse himself from the case. Thank you, and I yield back my time.
All right, thank you for your comments. We can move next to, or I'll have staff identify the next person.
I'm here. Hi. You hear me? Hello?
Yes, is this Amy's iPhone?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Okay.
Hi. I just want to, expand on what Barry Bader was talking about with Heidi Soto. She is in a position of really not fulfilling her duties as a city attorney in Los Angeles. She's not enforcing an RO against a minor. That person keeps violating his RO. The guy's name is Tony D'Amato. He continues to disobey the order, and Heidi Soto just sits on her hands and does nothing. This is a known person that's been working with Scientology. We have pictures of Heidi Soto in community events with known Scientology front groups, and this is absolutely inappropriate. I don't believe that that attorneys should be working with Scientology. They shouldn't be being given any money for anything related to any front groups, any police boards, etc., because it really creates a conflict of interest. It's a separation of church and state issue. You need to give your attorneys cult classes on, especially on Scientology. You guys, you must know all about it, because it's all out there on the internet, and there's so many cases pending against them. Addition to that, there's been people trying to get some permits for the road closure. They wanted to have a permit, an emergency permit issued, but there was a Kevin James in that same office with Heidi, who's also been seen pictured with with all the Scientology people. They wanted the permit to be done. This is a protester who wanted the permit to be given to her for L. Ron Hubbard Way, which is the street where the cult of Scientology, or the Church of Scientology, is on. And there were some sort of emails that were seen exchanged where Mr. James was influenced to not give any permits to said people that were trying to exercise their First Amendment rights. To me, this is an egregious thing to do to people that are trying to exercise their First Amendment rights. It shows a two-tiered system. because when Scientology wants a permit, they get it right away. So something's very fishy going on. And I would hope that you pressure Heidi Soto to not pursue charges against Henry Marini for just simply removing some things off of a public easement. I yield back my time.
All right, thank you. Madam Secretary, next caller.
Next, we have Mark Chonies. Your microphone has been enabled. You should be able to address the board.
How y'all doing? I have a problem. They have a man named Anthony D'Amato Jr. He goes by the name of Zero Dark Tony on YouTube. He continues to make threats and continuously violate a restraining order out of Los Angeles County. And it seems like he's being protected by LAPD and the cult of Scientology because they're not doing anything. And he continues to actively violate every day and threaten, make false police calls across 7 different states to different law enforcement agencies, CPS. It's just getting ridiculous. He's getting bolder. He threatens people. He threatens the protesters. Nothing seems to be ever done. The police don't do nothing. I don't know what's going on, but y'all need to do something. This man is vile, and he's causing a lot of people mental and verbal abuse on a nightly and daily basis. Y'all have his YouTube. He has a restraining order. He clearly violates it on YouTube, Twitch, and Rumble.
All right,
And
sir.
clearly,
Sir,
yeah.
our board is involved in the regulation of lawyers. Does your call involve a lawyer?
Well, it seems like his lawyer Tamu or something, Tamer, violates all the bullshit with him. And Kendrick Moxon could be involved. I'm not too sure, but he throws Moxon's name in it a lot. He files fake paperwork, false court documents. He puts whatever names down that he thinks is your name and or the YouTube name, and he mocks the court system.
All right, sir. Does that conclude your comments?
Yeah, please look into this, please, sir.
All right, thank you. Okay, I don't see any other attendees. Madam Secretary, have you identified anybody else?
I do not see any additional members of the public who'd like to speak at the moment.
All right. Well, I will conclude then the public comment portion of the meeting. Staff has taken down the various issues relating to public comments, and as always, the board will take those into consideration and what, if any, agenda items to suggest for future meetings. So unless there's any other comments on behalf of the trustees or staff in attendance. Okay, and seeing none, I'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you.